I think a lot of times people think about becoming perfect in life, but I don't think life is so much about becoming perfect. It's more about accepting you are imperfect and working on what you can make better.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of ZULA Answers. I'm Brenda.
And I'm Bolin, and today we have a very special guest. So let's welcome Dr. Goh.
Yay!
Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Goh. I'm a psychiatrist in general psychiatry as well as child and adolescent psychiatry.
Nice. So Dr. Goh is here with us today because today's video is in collaboration with Pfizer and we'll be talking about mental health. And it's a very special episode because all our confessions today are actually gathered from our colleagues in the TSL office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they are actually much closer to home.
I myself, I have been through similar phase before. So actually today I'm quite excited because today we have Dr. Goh here, and then I'm also quite excited to read other scenarios, and then it is I think more eye-opening to see different aspects of it and then try to understand from different perspectives.
Yeah, right. So shall we jump into confession number 1?
Let's go. Alright, so the first confession is from this person called Carrot. The title is, Am I subconsciously faking my mental health? Sometimes I'm worried that I'm faking my mental health issues for attention, even though such issues have often led to real repercussions like self-sabotage and self-harm. Is it possible I actually am subconsciously faking it while going through such visceral emotions and experiences? What is your opinion, doctor?
Definitely, when somebody tells you that they are in emotional distress, it's worth listening to more, right? I think our default a lot of times is to dismiss this stuff, but in actual fact, it takes a lot for somebody to come up to us and confess and say that, hey, look, I'm really having some difficulties, right? If they're joking, then of course it will come out later.
Right. So, what are some signs that maybe perhaps we can look out for to see if we are actually facing mental health issues?
One of the biggest challenges that a psychiatrist faces, right, is that the psychiatric conditions that people have oftentimes manifest in symptoms that we see on a day-to-day basis. Feeling sad is normal. When does feeling sad becomes pathological, becomes a clinical depression? And oftentimes what tells us that is not so normal is that the person is not able to function fully, right? So struggling at work, maybe struggling with their studies, right? And not for 1 day, 2 days. It's usually sustained for weeks, for months, and the person seems to be genuinely trying to do better, but they can't.
Right. So that's the one telltale sign when someone is faking it or having a real struggle. So doctor, do you think that there might be a case where someone is trying to fake mental health issues for attention?
So can it be that somebody is trying to get attention? I think it's probably not a good idea to just dismiss them. It's probably a good idea to hear more, listen more, and understand the situation a little bit better before we jump to conclusion. Actually,
I'm very curious. Do you have any advice that's directed to Carrot?
For other people to take our complaints seriously, right, we have to take ourselves seriously. That's not to say that you cannot feel that it's unreal. It's important to talk to people. Don't be afraid to step out and to ask people that you're comfortable with. These days, we can find out a lot more about mental illnesses online, right? Sometimes it doesn't have to be a psychiatric condition or mental illness. It can be just that you're struggling day to day, right? And you really need some help, right? And it's okay to talk to your family members, to reach out to your friends.
Well, this is actually, I feel quite comforting because sometimes I also will think here, think there, and then today we get to have Dr. Goh here, and then just the first confession itself, I feel like I already quite like my eyes are open really.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so
right.
This confession is submitted by Yeet Me Bro. So the title is, What Does Better Even Look Like? I've been struggling with mainly anxiety and depression for 12 years now. I get panic attacks almost every day and it exhausts me. The worst thing is that my episodes manifest very physically, so I have no control who sees me at my most vulnerable. As the years went by, I felt so hollow and empty that I didn't think I had any worth. Maybe that's why when I was sexually assaulted a few years back, all I did was stand there. I didn't say no. I didn't push him away because what's there to protect? There was no self-respect or dignity to protect. That incident somehow was further proof to me that I was worth nothing. So I lived my life like a tool for the people around me. I made sure that I was of some use to them. Or else, why would they want something like me around? I could never say no even if it meant breaking my back. I tried to leave everything behind a few times, but here I am. As a trade-off for not choosing to leave, I'll cut myself. I have had this question for the longest time. What does better even look like? What is this better everyone's asking me to chase? If better is up to me, then I'm not so sure I want to get better. I am scared to ask this, but is there even an end to this? Am I crazy for doubting the idea of better? Yeah, I just want to give this person a hug.
Actually, this is a very long story, right?
Yeah, there's so many things to unpack.
Yeah, but okay, to answer your questions, anxiety is an emotion, right? And it's actually a normal emotion. It serves a function. When we're anxious, it tells us, we need to take care of things, right? However, anxiety can become problematic when it's exaggerated, when it's excessive. What you mentioned here is panic. Panic is a very common presentation. In fact, there are many people who show up in the emergency room when they have a panic attack. A lot of times, anxiety disorder or anxiety attack is when you mislabel something that is not dangerous as dangerous. That can be because you had a bad experience with something, and then every time you're reminded of whatever it is, right, that makes you anxious, you have a panic attack.
I'm very concerned by the fact that this person has been battling anxiety and depression for 12 years. What will your advice be?
It's very likely that the person is only used to that, and that's, it's normal to think that that's as good as it gets. But if it's indeed anxiety disorder, it can be treated, and you can lead a life that's not filled with anxiety. If you seek help, you may be able to restore whatever that you don't have anymore, the sense of safety, the sense of not feeling anxious anymore.
Yeah.
I think the next most important question is, right, because for this person's case, there's a huge period of time where this person feels like he or she is worthless and start to self-harm. Let's say if at that stage, how do you advise he or she to stop doing that?
It's not uncommon for people who have so much emotional baggage to want to self-harm as a distraction for emotional pain. So I think to truly address the issues is to address the emotional hurt. And in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense to actually see a counselor, a therapist, to talk about the trauma that's happened.
So I think a very common question that a lot of people who suffer from anxiety and depression is there actually a way to recover?
Well, I have to say yes, right? Because it's my profession. Of course, there are things that we can do to help people overcome their emotional pain, right? Be it anxiety, be it depression. I think it's important to seek help professionally, especially if you've tried other things and it's not work, right?
Alright, so let's move on to the next confession. It's submitted by Jay.
Yeah.
And the title is Self-Diagnosed Depression. I have struggled with symptoms of depression and anxiety and have had experience with suicidal thoughts, self-harm, and body image issues. However, I'm always hesitant to self-diagnose as I worry that my issues are not legit or serious enough. Is it fair for me to say that I have depression and anxiety and maybe anorexia, even though I have not been clinically diagnosed?
Well, I think it's fair to say that you may have a condition, right? But maybe leave the diagnosis to the professional.
Right.
Yeah. Depression to a doctor is a lot more than just feeling sad. If we go by the diagnostic criteria, there are two main parts to being depressed. Number one is mood disturbance. A lot of times people who are depressed, they are irritable, okay? They have a sense of emptiness that's like really gnawing to them, right? And they feel frustrated very easily. For it to qualify as a clinical depression, it needs to be sustained. Meaning what? Meaning you're probably angry and sad and irritable and empty for a sustained period of time. If you go by textbook, they'll say 2 weeks, right? But a lot of times, people who suffer from depression, it's longer than that. It can go on for weeks, months, sometimes years. Part 2 would be something we call anhedonia. Anhedonia is an inability to experience joy, right? Let's say if I enjoy reading, right? But because I'm depressed, I no longer enjoy it. If I go to my favorite restaurants, after eating my favorite food, I just find that something is missing. I'm not able to experience pleasure. Sleep is part of it. It can be cannot fall asleep or sleeping too much, waking up at weird times or waking up very late. Any of this sleep problem can be suggestive that you're depressed, especially if you have mood issues as well. Appetite issues. The person mentioned something about, do I have anorexia? Somebody who's depressed can start to have thoughts of self-harm or have thoughts that life is not worth living or it's better that they were never born. Severe symptoms that is lesser known to people includes hallucination. So you may hear voices, and those voices can be telling you that you're worthless, there's no hope anyway, so don't do anything. Or they may go to the extreme of telling you to end your own life.
So I've actually heard of another term called major depressive disorder.
The diagnostic criteria that I mentioned just now is actually for MDD, major depressive disorder.
Okay.
Right. There are different types of depression. Major depressive disorder is definitely one of them. Because there are things like what we call minor depression, right, or dysthymia. Actually, minor is not so minor. Because what dysthymia is that it's a type of depression that is more persistent. It lasts for longer. And it can be very tiring, can be debilitating as well. That's one type of depression. Then you have something called DMDD, right? Which is a type of depression in young children that they react very aggressively. A lot of times they have angry outbursts. Depression can manifest in different ways.
Okay, so the next confession is submitted by Nola, and the title is Abandonment Issues. I recently moved out to stay alone because my mother is emotionally abusive. It also resulted in me having abandonment issues and being over-reliant on my brother. My mental health was the worst when my brother was married and moved away. This means that I had to deal with my mother's tantrums and insults alone. I felt the times when my brother usually fights for me and sort of raised me up are now gone. Although it has been almost a year since I've moved out, I realized that I had multiple breakdowns thinking I have no one by my side and that my brother didn't want me anymore. I realized I have abandonment issues other than anxiety from the way my parents treated me, and it isn't normal to break down over a sibling like this.
When it comes to someone with a lot of family issues and them being depressed, I would say you pointed out the underlying issues already. It's family issues. It would have to be a case-by-case basis, but a lot of times, if you address the family turmoil, right, then the depression probably will improve. There are places that you can go for family-related services. Family service center, around the country, is actually there are good places to go, right? So you just need to Google family service center, and their counselors will address family dynamic issues.
Oh my god, I wish I knew this when I was younger. Cause I really resonate with this a lot. Mainly because when I was younger, when my parents separated and my dad moved out, I felt every emotion that this person was feeling. Mainly because at that point in time, I was closer to my dad. And then he was always the one that, okay, I give you $20, you go and buy sweet, that kind of thing, So
$20 like a lot.
at that time,
Okay.
okay. That's not the point. When he moved out, right? Yeah, it felt like he didn't want me anymore. I think I was struggling with certain emotions and issues at that time that I didn't know how to address because I was like 16. At that point in time when I was younger, all these like mental health resources weren't out there yet. I don't know, I had this thing in my head where I thought that if you are depressed or if you are facing certain issues, then something is wrong with you. So I tried to just tell myself that I'm okay, like everything is okay.
You're strong.
Yeah, I'm strong. Yeah, I think it's great that like right now there are a lot of other mental health resources available for the younger generation out there. That's great. So how do you, like as a psychiatrist, tackle abandonment issues? Like when someone comes to you and like talk about this.
So we are the product of our past experiences. Life experiences like parental separation can make us feel like, we are not wanted. There's no pill for abandonment issues, right? If you're one of those people who had a difficult childhood, does that mean you're done for? No. What happened is then later in life, you'll meet many different people, right? And somebody stable will come along, okay? And that will help you to have a reparative experience, okay? And you can build from there. Oftentimes, mental health workers become that in the process, right? We are there whenever you have an appointment with us, right? And we'll listen to you, right? So part of the reason to see a therapist sometimes it is to have a corrective experience. I hope that answered your questions.
Yeah, I think it did. So because of what happened when I was younger, right? Now I realized that maybe a few years back I realized that I apply it to my current like friendships or relationships. So every time, example, I quarrel with a friend or I fight with a friend, my first thought is like, shit, she's gonna like not be my friend anymore. That's the first thought in my head, like she don't want me already. But then I'm glad that I met good friends now whom I realized that will not leave me just because of a fight. They assure me that they will still be here, and then like everyone's imperfect, we can just like work things out. Yeah, so I think what you said is very applicable, like meeting people who can actually support you.
Very good point. That we are imperfect, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people think about becoming perfect in life, but I don't think life is so much about becoming perfect. It's more about accepting you are imperfect and working on what you can make better.
Let's jump on to the next confession. It's from the person called Ancients. The title is
Anxious.
Anxious. Anxious. I said anxious.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. So the next confession is from this person called So the next confession is from this person called Anxious One. The title is Dealing with a Friend Who is Suicidal. My friend keeps calling me up out of nowhere and tells me that they want to commit suicide there and then. And I don't know what to do other than to keep them on the line. It can get very stressful because it feels like their life is in my hands. And I don't know how I can help. My first thought when I see this story or scenario is that the fact that the person called someone else.
Yeah. It takes a lot.
It is I would say the person actually don't want to die. Once he or she just needed someone there, I guess.
They need that last like helpline to tell them that, to hang on.
Yeah. So Dr. Goh, how can we help this anxious one?
Yes.
I think kudos for being there for your friend when your friend is voicing suicidal ideation, right? I think when somebody comes up to you and say, hey, I'm suicidal, what you need to find out is, hey, suicidal, where are you now? So if you need to send a police, where to send the police. When people are suicidal, oftentimes they're suicidal for that moment in time, right? And once that moment passes, oftentimes they are okay. So I think to establish safety for that moment in time is very important. This person is on the other end of the phone. Maybe, you need to find out if there are other people around that you can get to this person with. There are many resources in the community, hotlines. Okay, so there's the SOS hotline. You can call IMH. You can actually call the police if you believe that somebody is really suicidal. I've done that once. Actually, my friend told me she was gonna jump, and she was in Hong Kong at that time, and I was in America. Right, so I'm like, oh no, I know she just had a divorce. I know it's real because she sounded very drunk on the other side of the phone, right? So I kept her on the phone. I had another phone, luckily, and I called for somebody to help me to contact the police in Hong Kong. They actually hooked her up with the services in Hong Kong, right, to help her. She still talk about this to me up to these days. She thanked me for it,
Right.
Yeah. You need to loop in people, right? If you have family members around, you can tell, hey, my friend just told me he's suicidal, you know. You guys can brainstorm, what do we do next, right? Buy time.
Okay, yeah, I think that really helps. I feel like I'm a little bit more prepared now.
Yep.
Alright, so the next confession is submitted by Bloop, and the title is I Need a Listening Ear. So for some context, my dad has a gambling addiction, so growing up, my siblings and I always had to give him our angpao money, and from time to time, he would also take our phones, sell it away, and use the money to repay his debt. Hence, giving him money to repay his debt was a common thing in my household. 2 years ago in 2020, his addiction suddenly worsened, not like it was good to begin with, but oh well. My dad had asked me to loan him $10,000, out of which I had to borrow $7,000 from the bank. I'm still repaying the debt now in 2022 because the interest is crazy. He also borrowed money from the rest of my family as well. So this was when my mental health started to go downhill. Aside from family, I was also struggling with some of my personal issues, so I was just struggling in general. I remember I would tire myself from work, so I could just come home, eat, sleep, and not think about anything. Any tears or pain that I felt, I would just push it aside. This went on for about a year. Because of this, I was also having trouble talking to people as I was afraid that they would judge me. I started attending therapy this year, and it did help a little, but I'm still always feeling so anxious and scared all the time.
Sounds like a tragic situation, right? If we were unfortunately born into a situation that is very difficult, right? Yes, it may be beyond our control in that moment in time, but as time goes on, as you get older, right, as you have more experiences with other things, you realize that that is not everything. So sometimes we need to drown out bad experiences with good ones. It's not easy, it takes time, right, and it takes a lot of effort, but it's possible. I think it's important not to give up in a situation like this and to keep trying. Sounds like this person, like I say, have a good friend that he manages to reach out to, right? So it's a good start. A lot of times, young people come to me because I'm a child psychiatrist, right, and tell me a situation like this. What I can do is actually, a lot of times, just to support them, to listen to them. And some of these patients know me for years, right? They've started seeing me since they were in primary school. Now they're, in the army, or they started working. And life is really starting to change because now they have more control over their life, right? They're starting to have some resources. They can see themselves in a different situation.
Something that caught my attention is that the profile's coping mechanism now is to avoid the emotions, like to push away the emotions by, doing other things like working till late at night, going home, so that when they go home, right, they are so busy and so tired that they don't have the time to think about, they don't have the mental space to think about his or her problems already. So what's your take on this, and how would you advise the profile to?
So drowning out negative feelings with busyness is a very common thing that we do, right? It can work, but it often doesn't work long term. Yes, you can keep yourself busy, keep yourself focused on things that matter, but at the same time, you should be taking care of yourself, right? Are you resting enough? Are you eating your 3 meals, right? Keeping yourself healthy. Because all those are things that will keep you going. It will keep you stronger so you can manage all this stress better. Yes, get busy, but take care of yourself.
Is there anything that the profile can do at this point in time to maybe help him or herself come to terms with the emotions?
Bottling up emotions in the long run is never healthy, right? In fact, that's one thing that I realized with a lot of people with clinical depression, with panic disorder. They have this tendencies to bottle emotions up. So how do you process all these emotions? One is keeping a diary, okay, writing out, right, and reflecting on it. By documenting all this stuff actually is therapeutic, because then the diary bear witness to your suffering. But of course, try to not just diary the bad stuff, right? You also want to diary things that are encouraging for yourself. Sometimes people who are more artistic, they express their emotions through artistic means, right? So they may be singing, writing songs, okay, drawing, right? So those are ways of expressing your emotions.
Actually, thank you, Dr. Goh, because today, through all these different confessions, many different perspectives and scenarios, I actually learned quite a lot.
Same,
Yeah.
yeah.
So later I will take your number lah.
Like to wrap up, right?
Yes.
A lot of people nowadays are actually going through mental health issues, but they might be afraid, to seek medical help and assistance, mainly because more often than not, a lot of people will feel the fear or shame. I love that we are spreading the message that it's okay to not be okay. Just always be open to seek help and accept that everyone is different and everyone is going through different issues, right?
And also, do not think that sometimes you can bottle them up and then that you are strong. So I feel when you know something is off, something is wrong, first is to, like what Dr. Goh mentioned, to write it out, express your emotions, or find someone that you can, talk to, and then try to talk things out lah. Yes.
And also, we hope that this video, and of course with Dr. Goh's advice, it helps to break the stigma against seeking help when it comes to mental health issues.
That's right. With that said, Pfizer and Thoughtful have collaborated to provide users with seamless end-to-end mental health support via the Thoughtful Chat app. It allows them to access personalized, best-fit mental health care through one-on-one therapy sessions with certified mental health professionals and created self-care content and tools.
That's right, but just a disclaimer, the Thoughtful Chat app provides emotional support and helps users build and maintain healthy routines for their mental health and well-being, and it's not meant for use as a source for medical advice, diagnosis, or as an emergency resource for any crisis. So if you're in need of any immediate support or assistance, please head down to your local hospital. And for more information, you can check out the link in our description box below. And once again, thank you, Dr. Goh, for being here with us today. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Bye!